the one instinct that controls women more than love. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Today, we're diving into one of the most powerful and hidden forces in the female psyche, an instinct so deep that it can override love, logic, and even a lifetime of choices. Understanding this truth doesn't just help you see women differently, it helps you understand human nature on a profound level. As you watch, ask yourself, have you ever seen this instinct at work in your own life or in the lives of others? Share your thoughts in the comments, because your story might be the insight someone else needs. Welcome to Spiritual Wisdom, where we explore the truths that awaken your mind and transform your life. 1. Jung's discovery of a primal instinct stronger than love. Carl Jung uncovered a primal instinct in women, one so deeply embedded in the unconscious that it can override love, logic, and even lifelong commitments. This instinct is not a matter of choice or morality, but the product of an ancient biological program shaped over tens of thousands of years. Long before modern comfort and security, survival depended on passing down the strongest genetic material possible. For early human tribes, a woman's future and the survival of her offspring often hinged on her ability to sense and respond to subtle cues of strength, vitality, and reproductive fitness in a partner. This was not a conscious calculation. It was a force operating beneath awareness, a silent current where the needs of the body and the whisper of the soul intertwined. What makes this instinct so striking is its power to bypass even the deepest bonds of love. A woman can be utterly devoted to a man, sharing years of loyalty and shared dreams. Yet if this ancient mechanism is activated, it can cause her to turn towards someone else without hesitation. It has nothing to do with intelligence, morality, wealth, or education. Whether she is a scholar, an artist, a leader, or a mother, this instinct remains untouched by the surface layers of personality. It is impartial, unfeeling, and entirely focused on what the unconscious mind perceives as the key to the future. From the outside, such choices may seem irrational or even self-destructive. People wonder why intelligent, successful women sometimes leave stable and loving relationships for someone who offers no clear advantage, no financial stability, no security, perhaps even danger. But Jung's insight shows that what the conscious mind dismisses as illogical can, at a deeper level, be a response to a timeless survival imperative. The soul and the unconscious are not always aligned with societal expectations. The instinct does not care about appearances. It cares only about what it perceives as essential for the continuation of life. This explains why a woman may ignore a man who gives her everything, yet surrender to one who offers nothing tangible. The choice is not made in the realm of reason, but in the hidden depths where biology and the soul's ancient memories reside. It is a pull so strong that even she may not understand it, a compass guiding her towards something she feels. Without words, she must follow. In relationships, understanding this instinct does not excuse betrayal, but it can create a deeper empathy for the complex forces shaping human behavior. It reminds us that love exists alongside, not in place of, the evolutionary patterns that shaped us, and that the soul's desires, the heart's emotions, and the body's ancient programming often move together, but at times can pull in different directions. 2. How it works: genetic selection programming. Carl Jung revealed that deep within the female psyche lies a primal genetic selection program, an ancient force shaped by evolution long before human society valued kindness, stability, or compatibility. This instinct was designed for survival and reproduction, operating beneath conscious awareness, and it takes precedence over modern ideals when triggered. It responds to signals that once meant the difference between life and death, confidence that borders on arrogance, the thrill of unpredictability, the audacity of risk-taking, the commanding presence of dominance, the undeniable pull of social proof when other women show interest, the intrigue of mystery, and a rebellious form of intelligence that challenges convention. These qualities bypass rational thought entirely, creating an intense, almost magnetic attraction, a tunnel vision where reason fades and instinct takes the lead. In today's world, this programming still operates quietly, shaping decisions in ways most don't recognize. You may have seen a woman deeply drawn to a man who, by every logical standard, isn't what she once said she wanted. He may not offer stability or emotional security, yet she feels an irresistible pull toward him. Friends might warn her that she deserves better, and logically she agrees, but something older than logic is speaking louder. This is not random. It is her body and unconscious mind responding to signals they interpret as strength, adaptability, and genetic fitness, just as they have for thousands of years. Carl Jung's insight shows that in such moments, the attraction is not just emotional, it is biological, rooted in an ancient language that the modern mind cannot fully silence. In everyday situations, this instinct manifests in subtle but powerful ways. A man who enters a room with unshakable self-assurance and an energy that commands attention often draws more interest than the quiet, reliable man standing in the corner. The excitement of unpredictability can make life feel alive and electric, while the presence of social proof can intensify curiosity, creating a sense of validation and competition. A rebellious intelligence that refuses to conform to rules or expectations signals adaptability and courage, traits that once meant the difference between survival and defeat. These responses are not the result of conscious preference, but of deeply embedded survival strategies that have persisted through generations. The true value of understanding this lies in self-awareness, recognizing that certain patterns of attraction come from an ancient survival mechanism allows women to pause and reflect. Is this choice coming from a place of genuine alignment with my present needs? Or is it simply an old program running on autopilot? This awareness doesn't require rejecting instinct, but integrating it, honoring the pull, without surrendering to it blindly. When instinct and reason work together, choices in love become grounded in both the wisdom of the past and the clarity of the present, allowing relationships to be shaped not just by unconscious drives, but by conscious intent and emotional truth. 3. Love versus instinct. Why love often loses. Love, in its truest form, grows slowly through shared moments, mutual trust, and the weaving together of two lives over time. Yet there exists an instinct within the female psyche so ancient and immediate that it can eclipse love in a heartbeat. Carl Jung understood this as a force older than civilization itself, a deep, unconscious program designed not for romance, but for survival, capable of activating in mere minutes and shifting perception entirely. In that instant, the steady and dependable partner who has been the anchor for years can suddenly seem dull, predictable, and uninspiring, while another man, perhaps offering nothing in the way of security, appears thrilling, magnetic, and filled with a dangerous promise. It is not necessarily a choice, but a surge from the depths of the unconscious, bypassing rational thought and moral reasoning, creating a wave of attraction that feels beyond control. Jung saw that this instinct changes the very lens through which a woman views reality. She can still love her partner deeply and yet feel an undeniable pull towards someone else, a sensation that can create confusion, guilt, and inner turmoil. Evolutionary psychology explains that such an instinct may have once served a biological purpose to seek the most vital, genetically appealing mate for the survival of offspring. But in the modern world, it can lead to emotional chaos, broken relationships, and the painful questioning of one's own values. Imagine a woman who has spent over a decade building a life with her partner, a shared home, children, plans for the future. One afternoon, she meets someone new. He may not be richer, more handsome, or more successful, but there is a certain energy in his presence, a spark in his eyes, a subtle but undeniable challenge in the way he moves. In that moment, something buried in her DNA awakens. The pull is not about logic or security. It is raw, unfiltered instinct, whispering in a language older than words. From a spiritual perspective, this is where the real challenge begins. This instinct is not inherently wrong. It is part of human nature. But spiritual growth demands that we see it for what it is, an unconscious drive, not a divine command. Jung warned, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Recognizing this truth allows a woman to pause and reflect before being swept away. The soul seeks connection, meaning, and truth, while instinct seeks novelty, excitement, and biological fulfillment. When these forces clash, awareness becomes the bridge between passion and wisdom. By understanding that feelings are not orders, she can choose from a place of clarity, honoring both her emotional needs and her deeper spiritual values. In the end, this instinct is a mirror, showing the tension between the primal and the conscious self. It can cause a person to stumble, to question, even to betray, but it can also be an opportunity to awaken, to ask the hard question, is this true love, or is it instinct dressed in the clothing of love? That single question, asked in the heat of temptation, can protect the heart from years of regret, guiding it toward a choice that serves not only desire, but the long-term peace of the soul. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how instinct has shaped your relationships or life choices. Drop a comment below and share your experience. Or, if this message resonates with you, simply type "instinct over love" to show you're tuned into the deeper forces Carl Jung spoke about. 4. Why she abandons everything. When this instinct awakens in a woman, it moves with such quiet yet unstoppable force that the structures she has spent years, sometimes decades building, can crumble almost overnight. The vows of marriage, the security of a career, the stability of a home, all of it can be left behind as though it belonged to a life that no longer holds any meaning. The gravitational pull of this new attraction becomes the center of her existence, eclipsing everything else. The value she once placed on her commitments, her possessions, and even her own carefully maintained identity begins to fade, replaced by an almost spiritual hunger for the object of her desire. It is not a matter of cold calculation. It is the activation of something far older and deeper than reason, a force that rises from the hidden depths of the soul and drowns out every voice that dares to question it. Friends and family may try to reason with her, to point out the risks and dangers, but their words barely touch her consciousness. The instinct works like a veil over the mind, suppressing logical thought and numbing the natural awareness of consequences, making it seem as though nothing else matters except moving toward that one magnetic pull. Carl Jung recognized this as one of the best-kept secrets of female nature, a mechanism deeply embedded in the collective unconscious, born from ancient evolutionary demands. In a time long past, this force may have ensured the survival and renewal of the species, compelling women to follow a path that promised vitality and change, even if it meant stepping away from the familiar. Today, in the modern world, it can appear as sudden and bewildering self-abandonment, where stability is exchanged for uncertainty, where safety is left for the thrill and promise of something unknown. The soul, in these moments, seems to crave transformation more than comfort, and the pull toward renewal can feel stronger than the bonds of love itself. This is why an intelligent, loving, and loyal woman can turn away from a man who gives her everything and yet surrender completely to another who offers nothing material but awakens something raw, untamed, and undeniable within her. It is not always a conscious choice, nor is it simply about desire. It is about answering a call from within that feels as though it comes from fate itself. In that state, the past becomes irrelevant, the present is consumed by urgency, and the future becomes a horizon she must chase, no matter the cost. This is the paradox of the instinct. It can destroy what is safe and certain, yet in its destruction, it reveals the deepest truth of the human heart, that beneath reason, beneath love as we define it, there is a part of the soul that will risk everything for the chance to feel fully alive. 5. The invisible nature of control. Carl Jung revealed a truth about human behavior that remains as piercing today as it was in his time. Many of the decisions we believe are the result of clear thinking and free will are, in fact, the outcome of unconscious forces quietly directing us. In the realm of love and relationships, this truth becomes especially profound. Women often feel convinced that they are making genuine, authentic choices, that they are following their hearts with clarity and conviction, when in reality, their actions are often guided by an instinct so ancient and deeply rooted in the psyche that it bypasses logic entirely. This instinct can subtly alter memory, shift perception, and filter attention in ways that seem invisible to the conscious mind, magnifying every flaw in a current partner until it feels unbearable, while simultaneously painting a new person in such glowing colors that red flags fade into the background. It is not manipulation by another person. It is the mind's own evolutionary program working from the shadows. What makes this pull nearly impossible to resist is its disguise. It does not arrive in the mind as a command or an obvious urge, but as a profound sense of self-discovery. The woman believes she is evolving, breaking free, or even experiencing a spiritual awakening, unaware that this awakening may actually be the activation of a primal impulse buried deep in the unconscious. Carl Jung understood that the unconscious is not malicious, but it is indifferent to our modern ideals of stability, loyalty, and long-term fulfillment. It is ancient, designed for survival and adaptation, and it will disrupt what is familiar if it perceives that novelty or change serves its purpose. This invisible nature of control is not limited to matters of the heart. In today's world, you see it when a woman with a stable career, loving partner, and carefully built life suddenly feels compelled to abandon it all for a new city, a new passion, or a new person she barely knows. To outsiders, the decision looks reckless. To her, it feels like an irresistible call from her soul, a truth so clear it cannot be ignored. She may say, "I've never been so certain about anything," not realizing that her certainty is a product of unconscious patterns, hormonal chemistry, and archetypal forces Jung spent his career mapping. There was a woman I knew who embodied this perfectly. She had a devoted partner who encouraged her dreams, shared her values, and offered a life of stability and love. Then, during a work trip, she met someone who seemed to ignite every hidden desire within her. The connection was intoxicating. Within months, she left her relationship, believing she had finally found her true self with this new man. But once the initial rush faded, she saw that much of what she thought she saw in him had been projections of her own unmet longings. The stability she abandoned was not replaced by deeper happiness, but by the sobering reality that the choice had been shaped more by unconscious instinct than by conscious wisdom. This is where Jung's insight becomes a tool for empowerment. Emotional intensity does not always equal truth. The strongest feelings can sometimes be signals from the deepest, most primitive parts of the psyche, urging change not because it is better for us, but because it satisfies an ancient pattern. When we understand this, we gain the ability to pause before leaping. We can ask ourselves, is this truly the voice of my integrated self? Or is it the pull of my unconscious leading me towards something that feels right now but could cost me later? Real self-discovery is not found in obeying every inner impulse, but in learning to discern its origin, to separate the instinctive pull from the conscious, deliberate choice. In doing so, we reclaim our autonomy, protect our well-being, and align our decisions with both the needs of the soul and the wisdom of the mind. 6. When it awakens, trigger windows. When this hidden instinct awakens in a woman, it is as if an unseen current begins to flow through her, reshaping her desires, thoughts, and priorities in ways that even she may not fully understand. Carl Jung recognized that the human psyche is not always ruled by reason, nor even by love. It is often moved by deeper spiritual forces and primal codes embedded in the unconscious. This instinct tends to surface during specific moments when the emotional and physical landscape is more sensitive. Certain phases of the hormonal cycle, periods of transition like a career shift, the birth of a child, or the loss of someone dear. Stress can act as a silent catalyst, loosening the grip of routine and inviting the soul to seek change. Even boredom, deceptively quiet, can create a vacuum that demands to be filled. And then there are those fateful encounters with men who embody certain trigger traits, perhaps an unshakable confidence, an aura of mystery, or a magnetic presence that stirs something long asleep within her. As Anais Nin wrote, "We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are." And in that moment, she is not simply drawn to him, she is drawn to the reflection of her own hidden longing. This awakening can occur even in the middle of a happy, loving relationship. And that is what makes it so profound and at times so destabilizing. She may still care deeply for her partner, yet feel a sudden and unshakable pull towards something different, something undefined. Often, this is not about abandoning love for another person, but about answering a call from within, a yearning to reclaim a part of herself that has been buried under the weight of daily life. Jung believed that such impulses arise from the deepest layers of the psyche, where the spiritual self seeks wholeness and alignment. When this instinct stirs, it is like a spiritual earthquake tearing through the familiar, shaking loose old patterns and pointing toward a new horizon. The shift can be instant, a bolt of lightning that rearranges the entire emotional landscape. Once triggered, no amount of rational reasoning or appeals to loyalty can extinguish it, because the energy comes from something older than logic, an ancient survival and evolution mechanism intertwined with a spiritual blueprint. Picture a woman who has built a life she once dreamed of, yet suddenly finds herself compelled to change her surroundings, her style, her work, or even the people in her life. From the outside, it may appear impulsive or even destructive. From the inside, it feels inevitable, as if she has been handed a map to a part of herself she has never explored. A hidden door opens, and behind it is the next chapter of her soul's journey. As Jung warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This instinct, disruptive as it may seem, is often the soul's way of demanding growth, sometimes through letting go, sometimes through embracing uncertainty, but always with the intention of leading her closer to the truth of who she is meant to become. And in that process, while the present may tremble, the deeper self begins to rise. 7. Why logic doesn't work. When logic tries to stand against this instinct, it is like a candle in a storm, flickering against winds that have been blowing since the dawn of human history. Rational thinking belongs to the newer, more evolved parts of the brain, where reasoning, calculation, and analysis guide our choices. But this instinct does not emerge from that refined space. It rises from the ancient survival circuits buried deep in our biology, the same primal architecture that kept our ancestors alive in a world where emotional intensity could mean the difference between life and death. When triggered, it releases a flood of powerful neurochemicals that do not just influence thought, they suppress it entirely, drowning the quiet voice of reason beneath a roaring tide of urgency and desire. Warnings from loved ones, no matter how logical or well-intentioned, often fail to pierce this state. Instead, they are reframed within the mind as attempts to control, as evidence of jealousy, or as limitations imposed by others. This reframe paradoxically fuels the pull of the attraction, making it feel not only irresistible, but somehow noble, as if yielding to it were a defiant act of self-ownership or a necessary step in following one's truth. It is in these moments that the soul, clouded by the intoxication of the instinct, mistakes danger for depth, risk for romance, and chaos for freedom. This is why arguments rarely work. Facts speak to the intellect, but instincts speak to the marrow, bypassing the conscious mind and striking at the deepest layers of the psyche. People watching from the outside often misunderstand, assuming such choices are careless or self-destructive, when in reality, they are the product of an ancient mechanism far older than conscious thought. The only effective way to address this force is not to challenge it directly with cold logic, but to acknowledge its power, to name it without judgment, to see it as part of the human design rather than a flaw. When we bring this instinct out of the shadows and into awareness, we loosen its grip. What once seemed inevitable becomes something we can pause and question. The soul, no longer swept blindly by the current, can begin to choose from a place of integration, where passion and wisdom stand side by side. Mastery over this force is not about suppressing desire. It is about guiding it, allowing the raw energy to serve the person rather than control them. In this balance, instinct and reason do not compete. They collaborate, turning what was once an overpowering compulsion into a conscious expression of the deepest self. And so, as we've explored today, Carl Jung's insight reveals a hidden instinct, one that shapes decisions, relationships, and destinies in ways that even love cannot. Understanding this truth is not about judgment, but about awareness, about seeing the deeper forces that guide human behavior. If this perspective has opened your mind or sparked reflection, remember to like this video, share it with someone who might find it valuable, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming videos filled with more profound insights into the human soul and spirit. 9 unmistakable signs you are an intuitive introvert, INFJ, and INTJ. Carl Jung once said, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart." In today's fast-paced, noisy world, being an intuitive introvert is not a weakness. It's a rare and powerful gift. You see patterns others miss, feel truths others can't articulate, and navigate life guided by an inner compass that rarely fails you. But do you truly understand the depth of your own mind and soul? In this video from Spiritual Wisdom, we'll explore 9 unmistakable signs that you're an INFJ or INTJ, so you can embrace who you are and live with greater clarity, purpose, and happiness. As you watch, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Which sign resonates with you the most? 1. Social caution and misunderstanding. Carl Jung once said, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people." And this insight could not be more relevant when we talk about the social caution of the intuitive introvert. If you are an INFJ or INTJ, you already know that the way your mind works is unlike most people's. You see patterns others miss. You sense emotional undercurrents that are invisible to the average eye. And you have flashes of deep understanding that arrive almost like a quiet form of manifestation, as if your inner world is constantly pulling hidden truths into view. But here's the challenge. When you try to share these insights, you quickly realize they are not easy to explain in a way that others will understand. It's not because you lack the words, it's because your perceptions come from a deep inner landscape that many people have never even visited. And so, you learn early on that when you speak these truths, people may misinterpret them, dismiss them, or even label you as strange. This is why many intuitive introverts become guarded, choosing to keep their most profound realizations locked away, not out of arrogance, but as a form of self-protection. Over time, this caution can turn into silence, and silence into isolation, as you begin to feel like there are very few people who can truly meet you on the level where your mind and spirit naturally live. Yet Carl Jung warned that when we hide too much of ourselves, we risk starving our own soul. because human connection thrives on authenticity. The irony is that your gift, your rare ability to see life's hidden connections, can become the very thing that distances you from others. You might walk into a room, instantly sense the unspoken tensions between people, and know exactly who is pretending, who is hurting, and who is hiding something. This ability can make you valuable in understanding human nature, but it can also make you weary of casual conversation, because small talk feels like walking in shallow water when you are meant to swim in the depths. And so, you protect your inner ocean. But let me ask you, how much of this caution is necessary, and how much of it is fear in disguise? The truth is, your insights are not meant to stay buried. Manifestation is not just about attracting external success. It's also about bringing the inner treasures of your mind and spirit into the world where they can inspire, guide, and awaken others. Yes, some people will misunderstand you, but others will recognize you instantly, not for the words you speak, but for the energy you carry. As Jung put it, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And part of becoming who you truly are is finding the courage to share your vision, even when you know not everyone will understand it. So, the next time you catch yourself holding back, ask yourself, what am I really protecting? My peace or my fear? Because the moment you learn to walk the delicate line between discernment and openness, your intuitive nature stops being a source of loneliness and becomes a force for transformation, not just in your life, but in the lives of those you touch. And maybe, just maybe, the world has been waiting for the very truth you've been afraid to speak. Have you ever experienced moments where your need for social caution was misunderstood by others? If so, share your story in the comments so we can learn from each other's journeys. If not, comment, I will observe, to begin embracing your intuitive side with greater awareness. 2. Definition of an intuitive introvert. Have you ever wondered why some men seem to navigate life guided by an inner compass that others can't quite see? Carl Jung, one of the most influential thinkers in psychology, described a rare personality type that thrives on deep inner knowing, a type he called the intuitive introvert. This man doesn't move through life chasing constant external validation or applause. Instead, his strength lies in a profound inner vision, an ability to process life primarily through inward-focused intuition. It's not about being shy or withdrawn. Rather, it's about finding energy and clarity by turning inward, where the real treasures of the mind and spirit lie. In spirituality, and especially during a spiritual awakening, this quality becomes even more significant because it means that your sense of direction is not dictated by the noise of the world, but by the quiet truth within yourself. Jung believed that for an intuitive introvert, life is not merely about reacting to circumstances. It's about perceiving subtle patterns, hidden motives, and unspoken truths that most people overlook. In modern life, this might mean you're the kind of man who senses when a deal will fail before it happens, or who can walk into a meeting and instantly feel the emotional temperature of the room without anyone saying a word. You don't need the spotlight to validate your worth. You understand that the most important work often happens behind the scenes, in silence and contemplation, where ideas are born and refined. This doesn't mean you reject the outer world, but rather that you know your inner world is the lens through which all meaning is filtered. In a time when society pressures men to be constantly on, always chasing the next win. This ability to step back and trust your inner compass is not just rare, it's powerful. It allows you to remain grounded in your values and resilient in the face of uncertainty, because your foundation is internal, not dependent on fleeting external approval. Jung once said, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." That awakening, the moment when you realize your deepest guidance comes from within, is what sets the intuitive introvert apart. So the real question is, are you honoring this gift? Are you giving yourself the space to listen to your own thoughts without the constant interference of the outside world? In a culture obsessed with instant results and public recognition, the man who embraces his intuitive introversion becomes a quiet force of influence, capable of making decisions with a clarity that others struggle to understand. That is why your inner life, your reflections, your insights, your visions are not something to hide or dismiss. They are your greatest asset in both your personal and professional life. By embracing it, you not only strengthen your own path, but you inspire others to reconnect with their inner wisdom. And in a world that is losing its quietness, perhaps your presence, grounded in deep awareness and self-awareness, is exactly the kind of leadership we need. Comment below. I believe in myself. 3. Unique perception and insight. Sign 2. Unique perception and insight lives right at the core of who you are. And if you're an intuitive introvert like many INFJs and INTJs, you already feel it working quietly beneath the surface. As Jung might put it, they have a rich inner world filled with symbols, metaphors, and abstract ideas, allowing them to perceive hidden truths, potential outcomes, and deeper meanings that others often overlook. If that sentence makes you nod, it's because you often sense patterns. Others miss you. Read the room. Notice the gap between what's said and what's meant. And your mind links events like constellations in a night sky. You don't just see what is, you also sense what could be. And this isn't mystical fluff, so much as refined attention that tracks subtle cues, body language, and the emotional energy that people broadcast even when they think they're being neutral. Picture a moment from everyday life. You're at work, and a meeting is humming along. But you notice your best colleague's eyes drop each time a deadline is mentioned. Nobody else reacts, but you feel the temperature shift tension, a little fear, a story beneath the story. And later, when you check in privately, they admit they've been caring for a sick parent and drowning in quiet panic. Because your inner world speaks in symbols and threads, you connected deadline to lifeline, silence to strain. And your gentle question became relief for someone who didn't know how to ask for help. This is how your insight shows up. Not as loud predictions, but as calm, grounded foresight that steers conversations to truth and choices toward wisdom, which is also why people often say you just know things. What they miss is that your intuition isn't random. It's layered observation filtered through years of pattern recognition and meaning making. Here's the challenge though. Because these perceptions arrive as images, metaphors, or gut pulls, it can feel hard to explain them without sounding abstract, and you may worry that if you speak too soon, you'll be misunderstood. So you hold it, refine it, and when you finally share, it lands like clarity. This is the quiet leadership of the intuitive introvert. There's also a powerful tie-in with the law of attraction that many overlook. The meanings you assign and the images you return to shape your emotional state. And that state shapes your behavior, and your behavior shapes results. When your inner symbols are aligned with compassion, purpose, and steady belief, you radiate coherent energy that draws supportive people, timely opportunities, and clearer next steps. Not because the universe is a vending machine, but because you're more attuned to paths that match your values, and you take better, braver actions when your inner world is ordered. Think about your relationships. How often have you sensed the potential outcome of a conversation and chosen a softer word or a clearer boundary, preventing a fight or protecting your peace? Or consider career moves. How many times have you felt a quiet no before the data caught up and later realized your hunch saved months of regret? Your gift is pattern depth, seeing the seed inside the moment, the story inside the fact, the future curled up inside the present. And when you honor that gift, you live with less noise and more direction. So here's a question for you. What recurring image, phrase, or nudge has been visiting your mind lately? And if you treated it as meaningful instead of random, what small action would you take this week to test it? Let your insight become real. Take note of the symbols you notice. Ask a sincere question in your next meeting. Pause before responding and listen to the layers of meaning behind the words. Make a decision by connecting your values to your intuition, and then observe how your mood, actions, and results begin to align. The lesson is simple and profound. Your awareness is not a burden. It is a compass. Protect your solitude so it stays sharp. Translate your inner language into simple words that others can understand. Use your foresight to serve rather than control. And connect your inner image to the life you desire so your energy stays clear and your law of attraction stays steady. When you do that, your quiet intuition becomes a daily superpower. Clear, kind, and incredibly effective. Comment below. I trust my intuition. 4. Symbolic and future-oriented thinking. Have you ever wondered why certain people seem to navigate life not just by what's in front of them, but by an invisible map that only they can see? Carl Jung observed that intuitive introverts, especially the rare INFJ and INTJ types, are wired for what he called symbolic and future-oriented thinking. This means they don't just experience life as a string of random events. They read between the lines, seeing every moment as part of a larger story, almost like a series of coded messages meant for their personal growth. To them, a coincidence isn't just coincidence, it's synchronicity, a sign that life is guiding them toward a deeper purpose. While others may focus on immediate problems or practical details, they naturally lean toward big ideas, visionary concepts, and possibilities that extend far beyond the present moment. It's as if they're living with one foot in reality and the other in a future only they can envision. In the realm of spirituality, this is one of the first signs of a spiritual awakening, when the mundane starts to carry a sacred meaning, and everyday life transforms into a rich tapestry of symbols and lessons. The gift of this symbolic vision is that it allows them to connect dots others don't even see. A conversation with a stranger might spark an idea that changes the direction of their career 10 years down the line. A setback today might not feel like failure, but rather a necessary step in the unfolding of a much greater plan. They can see patterns in human behavior, societal changes, and even personal relationships that others overlook because they are tuned into the hidden architecture of life. This isn't fortune-telling. It's a form of intuitive foresight rooted in the subconscious mind, where the wisdom of countless life experiences and ancestral patterns quietly works behind the scenes. As Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. These individuals live by that truth, seeking to uncover what is hidden and to bring it into the light of awareness. In modern life, this way of thinking can be both a blessing and a challenge. On one hand, it gives them the ability to anticipate trends, inspire others, and make decisions based on long-term vision rather than short-term gain. On the other hand, it can make them feel misunderstood, especially in a fast-paced, results-driven world that values efficiency over depth. Many intuitive introverts have learned to keep their insights to themselves, knowing that not everyone will understand their symbolic way of seeing the world. But here's the advice: don't shrink this gift to fit in. Instead, find ways to use it, whether that's in your business strategy, your personal relationships, or your inner spiritual journey. Treat every event in your life as both literal and symbolic. Ask yourself, what is this here to teach me? That question alone can turn a frustrating challenge into a profound lesson that shapes the next decade of your life. If you find yourself constantly thinking about what might happen rather than what is, if you instinctively look for hidden meanings behind events, and if your mind is drawn to visionary possibilities rather than routine tasks, then you may be living proof of Jung's insight. And that's not just a personality trait. It's a sign that your soul is connected to both strategy and spiritual awakening. The world may be busy chasing the next quick win, but you have the rare ability to see through the noise, to see the patterns that shape destiny itself. So will you continue to walk blindly through life? Or will you choose to step into your role as a symbolic thinker, a seer, who can connect today's reality with tomorrow's possibilities? Comment below. I choose to walk the path of spiritual awakening. 5. Difficulty with practical reality. Let's talk about something that Carl Jung would say is almost written into the DNA of an intuitive introvert: the difficulty with practical reality. If you're someone who identifies as INFJ or INTJ, you probably know this feeling all too well. You can manage repetitive tasks, strict schedules, and everyday routines when you absolutely must, but they feel like they drain the very life out of you. Your mind is wired not for the endless ticking off of checklists, but for swimming deep in the ocean of ideas, imagination, and possibility. Jung once said, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." For you, looking inside is not a chore. It's your natural state, and the outer world's rigid demands can feel like a cage for your creativity. You might find yourself daydreaming in the middle of a meeting, brainstorming new possibilities instead of following the same old procedure, or losing track of time while exploring a thought that excites you. The irony is that this tendency, while often labeled as impractical, can actually be your greatest gift when used consciously. After all, manifestation begins in the mind, not in a spreadsheet. The real danger is when you let these practical struggles make you believe that you're somehow inadequate or too different to succeed in a structured world. In truth, your unique wiring allows you to see connections, patterns, and opportunities that others might miss completely. The question is, how do you bridge the gap between your inner vision and the outer world's demands without losing your soul in the process? You see, practical reality will always exist, but so will your spiritual nature and your hunger for meaning. The trick is learning how to treat structure not as a prison, but as a framework for your genius to operate within. Think of it as building a container strong enough to hold water without stifling its flow. If you can set up systems that handle the repetitive details for you, whether through technology, delegation, or even turning them into mindful rituals, you free your energy for the visionary work you were born to do. This is where Carl Jung's wisdom meets modern life. The awareness that your inner world is the source of your power, but it must be translated into action to shape reality. It's not about becoming a perfectly practical person. It's about aligning your practicality with your purpose so that your manifestations have a solid foundation to stand on. So, let me ask you, how often do you find yourself resisting reality? And how could you instead reshape it to serve your vision? The more you learn to harmonize your spiritual awakening with life's practical demands, the more unstoppable you become. And maybe, just maybe, those so-called impractical daydreams are not a weakness at all. They're the blueprint for the life you're here to build. Did you find this helpful? If yes, please comment yes. If not, please comment no. If not often, please comment sometimes. 6. Communication challenges. Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." If you are an intuitive introvert, such as an INFJ or INTJ, you may already know that your mind doesn't just think, it weaves, layers, and interconnects ideas in ways that feel like an intricate tapestry only you can fully see. This is both a gift and a challenge. Your thoughts are often multidimensional, filled with subtle connections and deep insights. But when it comes to expressing them in conversation, you might feel as if your words are too small to carry the weight of what you mean. It's like trying to fit the ocean into a glass. It never captures the full picture. That's why so many intuitive introverts feel a quiet frustration when others stare back with blank expressions, not because those people are unkind, but because the complexity of your inner world doesn't always translate neatly into spoken language. Carl Jung understood this, and it's why his work in psychology still resonates with anyone who has ever felt unseen or unheard. The problem isn't that you lack intelligence or clarity. It's that your ideas often live at a higher level of abstraction, built from patterns, symbols, and layers of meaning that most people don't even notice. This is where manifestation becomes an interesting concept, not in the trendy, oversimplified sense, but in the deeper Jungian way, where you bring your inner visions into the external world in a form others can touch, see, and understand. In other words, your challenge isn't just about communication. It's about translating the invisible into the visible. When you speak, your mind may already be 10 steps ahead, seeing outcomes, causes, and underlying motives that others have yet to process. That gap can feel isolating, but it also holds power. Because if you can learn to slow down, to meet others where they are, you can turn your complexity into clarity. Think about it. How many misunderstandings in life come not from bad intentions, but from the inability to clearly convey what's in our hearts and minds? What would happen if you treated every conversation like an opportunity for alignment, a small act of manifestation that shapes reality by bridging your inner vision with someone else's understanding? Great communicators throughout history, from leaders to visionaries, mastered this art not by dumbing down their ideas, but by translating them into stories, metaphors, and language that could resonate with the listener's experience. So, the next time you feel that surge of frustration when someone just doesn't get it, remember that your words are not only a reflection of thought, they are a bridge between worlds. Your depth is not a burden. It's a gift, but a gift that comes alive only when it's shared in a way that can be received. As Jung might remind you, true connection happens when the self is expressed authentically, yet in harmony with the other. And here's a question worth sitting with. How might your relationships and your personal growth change if you saw every conversation as a sacred space for transformation, not just for the other person, but for you as well? Let's talk about it in the comments. And if this message speaks to where you are, share it with someone who's walking their own path of awakening. 7. Emotional sensitivity. They say, the quieter you become, the more you can hear. And nowhere is this truer than in the life of an intuitive introvert. One of the most striking signs that you may belong to this rare group is emotional sensitivity, a quiet but profound ability to pick up on the subtle undercurrents of human interaction. Carl Jung often spoke about the layers of the unconscious mind and how those attuned to it could perceive things most people overlook. For intuitive introverts, this is not a learned trick or a party skill. It's a natural way of being. You may walk into a room, exchange only a glance with someone, and yet feel the tension they are hiding, the sadness behind their polite smile, or even the guarded secret they would never put into words. It's not guesswork. It's as if the atmosphere itself whispers its truths to you. This heightened perception is not limited to people's emotions, but extends to the overall energy in a space. You can sense when a conversation is loaded with unspoken meaning, or when the air in a room feels heavy with conflict, even if no one has said a word. While many call it intuition, for you, it feels like a deep-rooted connection to the human spirit, a skill that often deepens as you grow in your journey of spirituality and spiritual awakening. This sensitivity can be a double-edged sword. On one hand, it allows you to form deeper, more authentic connections with others because you understand them on a level beyond their words. On the other hand, it can be exhausting. In the modern world, where everyone wears masks and projects curated versions of themselves, it can be overwhelming to constantly receive emotional data that no one else seems to notice. You might leave social events feeling drained, not because you dislike people, but because you've absorbed too much of their unfiltered emotional energy. For a man navigating life between 30 and 65, where responsibilities, relationships, and careers all carry invisible emotional weight, this gift can feel like both a blessing and a burden. The key lies in learning to manage it, setting boundaries, knowing when to step back, and recognizing that it's not your role to fix every hidden sorrow you detect. In everyday life, this sensitivity can manifest in subtle ways. You might detect tension in a business meeting before anyone raises a concern, allowing you to steer the conversation in a more constructive direction. You might sense that a friend's cheerful text is masking deeper struggles and decide to reach out at just the right time. This kind of awareness makes you a trusted confidant and a stabilizing presence for those around you. But it also calls for self-discipline, because without conscious effort, you can end up carrying emotions that aren't yours. That's why many intuitive introverts naturally gravitate toward practices like meditation, journaling, or spending time in nature spaces where they can release the emotional noise and reconnect with themselves. These practices are not luxuries. They are necessities for maintaining mental clarity and emotional balance. Carl Jung once said, "Your vision becomes clear only when you see through your own heart." For you, emotional sensitivity is not just about seeing others clearly, but also about understanding yourself through the reflections you find in them. This self-awareness is at the core of spiritual awakening, because it forces you to confront your own hidden emotions while exploring the invisible lands of others. And perhaps the most important lesson for you is this: you are not here to bear all the burden of the emotions you feel. You are here to perceive, to respond when it suits your purpose, and to hold the space you need to continue to grow. Comment below. I am constantly growing. 8. Need for solitude. When Carl Jung explored the inner world of personality, he often emphasized the deep need that intuitive introverts, such as INFJs and INTJs, have for solitude, not as an escape from life, but as a sacred space for restoration, reflection, and alignment with their inner truth. For you, social interactions can be like drawing from a limited energy well. Each conversation, while potentially meaningful, still consumes a piece of your mental and emotional reserves. After extended time in the company of others, you may feel as if your thoughts are scattered, your inner balance slightly off-center, and your ability to focus on your deeper calling temporarily dulled. This is why alone time isn't merely a preference for you. It's a form of spiritual maintenance. In those quiet hours, away from the noise of expectations and the subtle pressure to adapt to social norms, you can return to yourself, process experiences, and hear the faint but powerful voice of your own intuition. As the philosopher Blaise Pascal once said, all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. For an intuitive introvert, this is not just wisdom, it's survival. You know that manifestation of your best self cannot occur when your mind is cluttered with external chatter. Instead, it unfolds in the stillness, where your visions, insights, and creativity have space to breathe. Think about the times when, after a day of constant interaction, you finally shut the door, sat down with a journal, or simply allowed your thoughts to wander. Didn't you feel your mind untangle, your emotions find clarity, and your spirit regain its strength? Carl Jung believed that such moments are not a withdrawal from life, but a vital part of it. For in solitude, you integrate the lessons of the outer world into your inner landscape, shaping them into wisdom you can later share with others. And in today's hyper-connected age, where constant notifications and endless social engagements often leave us overstimulated, This need for quiet becomes even more essential. If you deny yourself solitude, you risk losing touch with the very source of your insight and authenticity. Yet if you honor it, you'll find that you return to the world with renewed energy, sharper perception, and a deeper sense of purpose. So, here's the question for you. Are you making enough space in your life to be truly alone? Not lonely, but alone in the empowering sense that allows your spirit to rest and your mind to create? Because in that space lies not only your balance, but also the key to your most profound personal manifestation. As Carl Jung would remind us of your ability to bring forth from the unseen into the seen, from the inner vision into the outer reality. Embrace the gift of solitude and let it renew your soul. Subscribe to our channel to journey with a community that values peace, reflection, and spiritual growth. 9. Life path and purpose. Carl Jung once said, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." This truth speaks directly to the life path and purpose of the intuitive introvert. If you are an INFJ or INTJ, your solitude is not a sign of weakness. It is the very soil in which your most profound ideas grow. You are a man who can sit in stillness, hear the quiet pulse of his own mind, and see visions that others may never even imagine. This inner depth is your greatest asset because it allows you to live a life that is not merely reactive to the world, but guided by a deep inner compass. You have the capacity to be a creator, a visionary, and a pioneer of ideas that could change lives. Yet, Jung also warned that without grounding, even the most brilliant vision can become nothing more than a daydream. In spirituality and in life, inspiration is only the seed it must be planted in the soil of consistent action to grow into something tangible. In your spiritual awakening, you will notice that clarity doesn't come all at once. It unfolds as you take steps in the direction of your calling. Think about the great inventors, artists, and leaders throughout history. Many of them were introverted visionaries like you, deeply connected to their inner world, but they paired that insight with discipline and action. In modern life, it is easy to get lost in the world of ideas, especially when you have a mind that sees patterns, possibilities, and hidden truths that others overlook. You may spend hours contemplating the meaning of life, mapping out business ideas, or envisioning creative projects. But ask yourself, how many of those visions have you turned into reality? This is where the challenge lies for the intuitive introvert, bridging the gap between the inner world and the outer one. Spirituality teaches us that thoughts are powerful, but manifestation requires alignment between thought, feeling, and action. Without action, even the purest vision will wither. In your own life path, it might mean finally starting that project you've been refining in your mind for years, speaking your ideas into the world even when you fear misunderstanding, or taking small, steady steps toward the bigger mission you feel called to fulfill. Jung understood that the danger for people like you is staying in the clouds too long, letting the world remain only in symbols and possibilities. The true mark of your spiritual awakening will be when you learn to stand with one foot in the unseen and one in the seen, when your vision fuels your work and your work shapes the world. The man who learns to do this becomes unstoppable because he is not swayed by trends or noise. He is guided by purpose. As you walk this path, remember that your gift is rare, but it is also a responsibility. Your inner world holds treasures, but the world will only benefit if you bring them into reality. So, what idea, vision, or calling have you been holding back on? And more importantly, what is one step you can take today to make it real? Because the bridge between your inner genius and the world's benefit is not just thought, it is action. And so, while the world may never fully understand the quiet depth of an intuitive introvert, you know the truth of who you are. A rare soul, guided by insight, empathy, and an inner wisdom that sees far beyond the surface. Embrace these signs not as labels, but as a reminder of the unique light you carry in a noisy world. If today's message spoke to you, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you won't miss our upcoming videos filled with inspiration, insight, and spiritual growth.